G5 jet. I'm on my way to a brand new kit.
Welcome back, eSIM Studios podcast live stream, special live stream episode number 200. On this live stream series. So my name is Taylor Bell. This is eSIM Studios podcast live stream episode 200. As I mentioned earlier, long busy weekend. I essentially took the weekend off, so I do apologize. Normally I've never taken 2 days off in a row, so I think out of these 200 episodes I've only missed a handful of days. First time ever I had not live streamed more than 2 days in a row, or excuse me, more than 1 day in a row. So I do apologize for that. Let me check my volume levels just to make sure everything is good. Yeah, we're good. Okay. So, a lot going on. Actually, I know most of my subscribers are not interested in Apple and iPhone, and that's fine because honestly, I'm not either. But I do have to cover it. It is part of the job. I'm trying to make this a reputable tech news podcast, right? Show. So we will get into iPhone. We'll get into iPhone sales. Interesting statistics out of this week, coming from this weekend in regards to iPhone sales. We also have iPhone news. We have Android news. We got a lot of stuff. So I got to cap this at 30 minutes. So we'll get started here. If you miss this episode, live streaming on a bunch of different platforms. So if you're watching this, come over to YouTube and simply search eSIM Studios. Subscribe to our eSIM Studios YouTube channel. That's our home base. You can always catch the replays there. And you can always catch the audio form of this in or on, shall I say, any podcast platform in the world. Or basically 95% of all the podcast platforms in the world. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio Music app, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, wherever you listen and or get your podcast from, search eSIM Studios Podcast. We shall pop up. Or if you're looking for something that we do, just simply type in Google eSIM Studios and we'll fill up that whole page on Google when you type in eSIM Studios. So let's get into it. So we'll start with iPhone, right? So I'm going to take you back maybe 3 months ago, something like that, a few months ago. I had mentioned that with the screen, we knew Apple was going to increase the screen size, right? We knew they were going to increase the screen size of the Pro Max, 16 Pro Max and the 16 Pro, right? Pro Max was going to jump up to a 6.9 inch display, up from a 6.7. And the 16 Pro was going to jump up to a 6.3 inch display, 6.34 inch display, and that was going to be up from a 6.1 inch display. I thought it goes to show nobody's perfect. Even my estimates can be wrong sometimes, but I will own up to it and say that my estimations were wrong. I thought that the highest selling iPhone model this year was going to be the 16 Pro, simply because the 6.9 inch Pro Max was going to be too big, honestly. Bigger display than the S24 Ultra, right? The S24 Ultra is a huge phone, right? It's almost unusable with one hand. I figured the Pro Max was going to be so big this year that that's the main reason why they increased the screen size of the 16 Pro, because if the Pro Max was going to be way too big, well, people that still wanted a big screen but didn't want something as small as a 6.1 inch display, I felt like Apple increased the screen size of the 16 Pro to kind of catch those people that were in between. So it's still a relatively smaller phone, but it's not a tiny phone. And yes, a 6.3 inch display compared to a 6.1 inch display, does make a difference, right? When using it. My opinion, 6.7 is perfect, but that's just me. So I thought the 16 Pro was going to be the highest selling iPhone. Typically, the Pro and Pro Maxes always do very good in sales as far as numbers, just raw units sold, right? Well, we have pre-order numbers in so far. So starting on the, starting on the 13th, Friday the 13th, you could pre-order an iPhone 16 series, whether it's a 16, a 16 Plus, 16 Pro, or Pro Max. Numbers are in just from the last couple of days. And actually, I was incorrect. The 16 Pro was the least selling iPhone 16 series over these last couple of days. Surprisingly, the 16, the base model, and the 16 Plus were the highest selling phones that Apple put out. So the 16 was the highest selling, number one seller, this total units sold. 16 Plus was the second highest seller. 16 Pro Max was the third highest seller. And the 16 Pro was the least sold. I say least, they've still probably sold a few million iPhones over these last couple of days of each model. 16 Pro was the least selling iPhone 16 series model so far. And again, I thought that would be the highest selling. So what do I know? But for me, that's probably the best one to get. I have a bunch of big phones, so I don't, want another ginormous phone. So the Pro is my choice. But the reason why I think people, the average consumer, is getting a 16 and a 16 Plus, it's pretty simple, right? It comes down to cost. Cost, price of a certain service and or product is the ultimate deciding factor in whether somebody buys it or not, right? It just is. Price. We're in a weird times where inflation's high here in America. Just went to the grocery store, as I'm sure everybody listening. You get a couple of items, just a couple of bags of food. It's $100, right? So $100, you could, money just doesn't travel as far, right? Doesn't get you as much as it used to, and that's across the board. Phones, prices are going up on phones. They have to compensate for the higher prices of the parts that they put in the phone. They have to compensate, pass the pricing on to the consumer, their costs onto the consumers, such as groceries. Have to increase the prices because the shipping cost of getting it to the store has gone higher, so they have to raise the price of the foods, which compensates for the high shipping costs. So everything gets passed down to the consumer. Long story short, I believe the reason why the 16 and 16 Plus are the highest selling iPhone models of the last couple of days is because of price. Now, all the iPhone 16 models have 8 gigs of RAM. All of the iPhone 16 models are getting Apple Intelligence, AI. And I think in the typical consumer's mind, they think, well, why should I spend so much more money on the Pro and the Pro Max when I can just get a 16 or a 16 Plus and basically get the same features for a cheaper price? And I think that's what's going on. If we were not in a high inflation rate society that we live in right now in America, going back to, if you rewind the clock and you go back a few years, I think the 16 Pro, I'm not trying to defend my theory here, but I'm just saying I think that's the number one in. Look, shame on me. Maybe I should have considered that. But Apple is selling way more 16 and 16 Plus than Pro and Pro Max. That's just a fact. The numbers are out. So not only did the iPhone 16 series come out, iOS 18 was released today. Now, Missing are missing in iOS 18 is the Apple Intelligence features. However, if you do have an iPhone, I strongly suggest you update your phone to iOS 18 simply because, since I'm a Android user, an Android fanboy, RCS is now activated. RCS is now live in iOS 18. Now, it still might not show up in your iPhone if you're using an MVNO. So if you're on AT&T using an iPhone, if you're on T-Mobile using an iPhone, if you're on Verizon using an iPhone, and you update your iPhone to iOS 18, RCS should be activated. Now, the smaller MVNOs like Mint Mobile, T-Mobile owns Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile put a statement out saying that RCS will not be available for Mint Mobile on iPhone for the next few months, around the new year. And that's unfortunately a common occurrence. I think Metro also put a statement out saying it's not going to be available right at launch. Cricket, I think, is not available at launch. So it looks like all the major carriers are activating RCS in iPhone, but the MVNOs, the smaller cell phone companies, are not. And there's a couple of theories, a couple of reasons why, because when you hear that, you're like, that's weird. Why would they do that? Well, I think it comes down to paying more. I think these companies want you to pay more for the service. So you can get Mint Mobile, or you can have a Go 5G Next plan with T-Mobile, and you're basically getting the same data. Technically, you're getting the same frequencies, Mint Mobile as T-Mobile. However, they preference the higher paying consumer on T-Mobile. So that's why when you look at these small in the fine print, you get premium data. You get that means they prioritize the T-Mobile customers over Mint Mobile customers if you're in a high traffic area, or if you're in a shopping center and there's a T-Mobile tower behind the shopping center. All of those people around that shopping center that actually have T-Mobile service are getting the premium data. They're prioritizing data, not only data, but speeds, how strong your signal is, and then it gives the leftovers to the Mint Mobiles, to the Metro PCSs, to the Crickets, whatever. But that would be for AT&T Tower. But I believe that's why. I think they want to prioritize the higher paying customer. And they want you, if somebody absolutely has to have it, they want you to go to T-Mobile, right? If somebody has to have RCS, they want you to jump off Cricket and go to AT&T. If somebody has to have RCS, they want you to get off of Visible and go to Verizon. I believe that's why. It's not fair, but it is what it is, right? It is what it is. These businesses use these little strong arm tactics to try to get you to pay more money. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Just pay more money. So now RCS should work between iPhone and Android officially today. And again, that's if you have an iPhone on AT&T, on T-Mobile, on Verizon. So that's the big news that came out of iOS 18 today. No Apple Intelligence. So sort of like Google, where now Google launched these new Pixel 9 series just last month. They were very careful not to, because what frustrated me last year is when Google released the 8 series, they said, "Oh, we have all these cool features." They went down the list. "Oh, I can do this, and this." When the Pixel 8 series launched, the actual phone, when you got it, only did like half of those, right? Like half of the services that they listed worked out the box. Half of them were going to come at a later date. That really pissed me off. I don't think they should announce what it will do in the future. Tell me what it's going to do when it comes out of the box, because some people, and we didn't know that until we actually got the Pixel 8 series. So you get them in your hand, start using them. Or they would say for one or two of the services or features, they would say, coming at a later date, right? So Apple Intelligence, these new Apple iPhone 16s are supposed to run Apple Intelligence, right? AI. However, not at launch. They're sort of taking a page out of Pixel's, Pixel book, which is not cool, right? But it is what it is. If it's not ready, it's not ready. But boy, they sure have been promoting it quite a bit. So we don't know exactly when it's going to come. They said coming soon, right? So I'm assuming it's going to be right around. I'm hoping it would be around the New Year's, Christmas time, something like that here in the next few months. But we just don't know right now. But Apple also put out updates for Sequoia, so MacBooks. You have a big software update. Apple Watch, you have a big update there. Watch OS, or whatever the hell they call it. It's supposed to activate the sleep apnea tracking. So big news, making headlines here if you have an iOS product and or device. Android news. We got some interesting camera cutouts. We have some interesting news when it comes. Let's go ahead and let me pull up the news. Let me pull up the news here. Hang on. Let me mute this real quick. Give me just a second. All right, I'm back. So let's do this. Let's go through the news, right? So, phone news. Let's see what we got on today's list. So, here's something I saw. Samsung, you know how Huawei came out with that tri-folding phone, right? So Huawei came out with, it's a tri-fold. So it's not only a foldable with one hinge, it has two hinges, three screens, technically one screen, but it can be folded in two different ways, but it, essentially has three sections of screens that has been taking the internet by storm. Well, Samsung apparently says, well, hold my beer, I got one for you. Apparently, Samsung is pursuing the world's first rollable phone. I've seen this at CES. I've seen these even as of a couple of years ago. So these have been made. These have been developed, just not for sale. So Samsung it looks like they're going to do a rollable phone where the screen, it'll be a phone, and you'll be able to increase or decrease the screen size simply by a flexible OLED. Now, surprisingly, interesting fact, this Nothing Phone 2A has a flexible OLED in here. Why did they put a flexible OLED in a phone that does not fold or roll? It's because it's very thin. It's a very, very, very thin OLED panel, so they can get more stuff underneath it inside the device. But these rollable and foldable LED screens, OLED screens, have been out for years. So just interesting that Samsung is going to get into the rollables and not the multiple foldables, if that makes sense. So now I don't know if it'll be available next year, but should be available in 2026. Let's see if it says here in the article. Rumors claim Samsung is reportedly shifting its focus on a rollable style smartphone following Huawei's Tri-Fold. The device is supposedly seeking a second half of 2025 launch with a 12.4-inch display when fully expanded. So it's going to be a big device, right? Because that's the size of their tablet plus, S10 plus, S9 plus, Tab S9 plus. That's the same size, right? Samsung showcased a rollable phone prototype during CES called the Rollable Flex. I'm assuming this is it. Rollable Flex. Very interesting. So that's slated for a late 2025 launch, basically a year from now. So we'll keep an eye on that. Now, interesting, we know leaks have been coming out for the Samsung Galaxy S25 series, right? So we've got to see what the S25 Ultra looks like. I love the design, and the S25 Plus and regular S25. We've been able to see what they look like from the back, so it doesn't look all that different from this year's S24 series, right? Same camera setup and everything. But the photos we've seen of these new S25 series is just from the back, right? So now we've got new information where we are able to see the camera sensors from the side. And what do you know? It looks like a Super Mario gutter pipe. What do I mean by that? Well, or warp pipe. Interesting design. So the design, Samsung may use a unique camera design for the S25 and S25 Plus. This design is reportedly called a double layer design. It said the unusual design won't appear on the Ultra. Now, if you can see exactly where, how, and what I'm talking about, check this out. You see where it's not a straight cylinder coming up from the sides of the sensor all the way down to the back of the glass? It actually has that pipe head sort of look and feel. Do y'all remember Super Mario Brothers, or am I aging myself by referencing that? So it's basically coming out from the back of the phone. Then there's a 90-degree angle where it comes into a bigger cylinder out, and then a 90-degree angle up towards the top of the sensor. If you can see the screen right now, you can see what I'm showing you. I'm not sure what the purpose was to design it this way. I don't know if it serves a special purpose. I don't know if the sensors are bigger at top. I don't know if they're putting a special glass in there. I don't know. But it's very interesting. Just thought you would possibly find that interesting. I did. I sure did. So, and look, all these companies are starting to leak stuff. There's been a ton of leaks here over the last, I don't know, couple weeks. And that's simply because iPhone's coming out, right? So Samsung wants you to not buy the iPhone, and they want you to buy their next flagship, which, again, we haven't heard if they're going to update, if they're going to jump up and move forward their launch date, even making it 2 years in a row. But I would not be surprised, right? So the Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 next month is going to be released. We've got word that the OnePlus 13 is going to be released next month, right? Early, really early. I would not be surprised to see the S25 series maybe get a before Christmas launch. Nothing yet. We have not gotten any words, no official rumors or any kind of rumors, but everybody's moving forward. Everybody's launching their devices sooner, right? And you're getting all these leaks with these iPhones coming out. You got this tri-foldable phone by Huawei. You got Samsung leaking the S25 series, their new rollables. You got OnePlus coming out leaking their, hey, we're going to launch our new phone, our new flagship next month. All sorts of leaks coming out, and that's just due to the iPhone, right? So let's see what we got here. Let's see. This person is saying Apple Intelligence launch is a mess. Don't buy the iPhone 16 or install iOS 18. Okay. What else we got? So it's interesting. Speaking of the iPhone, look at this. it's interesting that, going back to iPhone sales, it's interesting that the iPhone 16 Plus has been their best seller, because next year Apple is getting rid of the iPhone 17 Plus. They're getting rid of the Plus model, because traditionally it's always been their worst selling model. Now, plans are to boot the Plus model next year and input the iPhone 17 Air model. It's just interesting that we're at a point now where the Plus is outselling everything, right? Is it the Plus? Let's see. Pre-order sales of the iPhone 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max have dropped 27% and 16% respectively compared to last year's models. That is insane. So the 16 Pro has sold 27% less than the iPhone 15 Pro did at this point. And the 16 Pro Max has sold 16% less than the 15 Pro Max has sold at this time last year. The 16 and 16 Plus have increased by 10%. So the iPhone 16 has sold 10% more than the iPhone 15 has last year. And check this out. iPhone 16 Plus has sold, sales have increased 48%. iPhone 16 Plus sales have increased 48% compared to last year's iPhone 15 Plus sales at this point in time. It says, while there's more interest in regular iPhone 16 models than last year's variants, Pro models continue to sell significantly more. Now, time will tell. I don't know if that statement, I think they're talking about just overall units. I do know, here's an interesting fact right here. Estimated first weekend pre-order sales, average delivery times, and shipment before pre-order of iPhone 16 models. I do know, just checking out some pre-order stuff, that the sales of the Pro Max, 16 Pro Max, have, and see, here's a fact that we don't know. So here's a piece of missing information that would help us understand these numbers, is we don't know how many units Apple has manufactured of each model. Because remember, iPhone 16 Pro or iPhone 16 Pro Max, it's not just the Pro or the Pro Max. Remember, there's a different storage variants. So with the Pro or the Pro Max, you have 3 or 4 models of the Pro or the Pro Max, right? Same thing with the 16 and 16 Plus. So just depending on how many they've manufactured, and it's all a guess, right? They pay analysts millions and millions of dollars throughout the years to try and fine-tune and guess and estimate how many they should mass produce at the very beginning, what the demand is for each model, for each storage variant, and then produce a certain number, X number of iPhone 16 Pro 256 models or 512s, right? So depending on how many models and storage variants Apple has manufactured at this point, to date right now, depends on what the delivery dates are looking like if you did pre-order an iPhone 16, right? I know you can get some on launch date on September 20th later this week, while some are pushed back into mid-October, right? And I think a lot of those are the Pro Maxes and stuff like that. But it's interesting to look at these sales numbers. It really, really is. They're going to make some big changes here coming up here in the next few years, so it shall be interesting. Now, I think a new beta came out for Android. Let's see. let's see here. I guess I could Google search it, right? Why don't we do that real quick and jump into what are the updates? So I'm not. So on my Pixel, I am gonna jump into the beta program, but I think I'm gonna wait for Android. I think I'm gonna wait for Android 15 to officially drop the stable build of Android 15, and then once I get the stable build of Android 15 on my device, that's when I will look into jumping into the beta program. So let's do this. Let me present let's present this, and let's look up QPR1 beta 2. I think this is it right here. Yes, 1 day ago. So, okay, it was released on Thursday. So, let's look into this real quick and then we'll get out of here. Let's see what this entails. So let's see. Google released Android 15 QPR1 Beta 2 on Thursday. It's a sizable update with a number of user-facing changes. Okay, so here's what's changed. Pixel screenshots does not automatically process captures. When you take a screenshot, the bottom corner corner. I think they miswrote that. Preview does not glow and just opens markup when tapped, while the reminder action does not appear alongside share, edit, and capture mode. Okay. So screenshots have changed slightly. See, here's a good example of why I don't ever, when a brand new version of Android comes out and a brand new beta version of that Android comes out, I typically wait a little while, right? I usually wait 2 to 3 updates and then it's probably ready for me to jump into it, because there's already some talk about a lock screen bug in this Android 15 QPR1 Beta 2 that supposedly after a reboot, the 2 lock screen shortcuts on the bottom left and right corner might not appear until you set them again in wallpaper and style. And there has been some other talks about just the overall operating system being a little buggy, getting some app force closures, and you having to basically restart your phone to get it up and operating normal. So here in another issue they've noticed is, after opening the camera app on the lock screen and then exiting by swiping up on the gesture handle, camera or the Google Home controls will end up launching again after a moment. The workaround here is closing apps by swiping on the right left edge. Interesting. So there's some little bugs here and there. Again, I think it'll be ready for me to I've overall had a pretty good experience with Android beta program dating back to years ago. But again, when a new beta version comes out, I mean, I'm talking about a new Android software comes out, whether you jump from 13 to 14 or Android 14 to Android 15, I'll typically wait probably 3 months, right? A few months, a few updates. So I'll get Android, as I mentioned, I'll get Android 15 when the official stable build is ready for my Pixel. I will download it, install it, and then a week or two after the official build, stable build comes out, then you shall get a beta update, and that's typically when I will jump into it. That's just what I've always done. So, but when that time comes, I think we're getting Android 15 for this Pixel device here, I think in a couple of weeks. Once we get that on our devices, I'll be on the lookout for the latest Android beta update. I'll probably enroll once that time comes around, and then start using my Pixel on beta software. So again, I've always had a good experience with their beta program, with only having over the years probably just a handful of issues that are very sporadic and they don't last long. So again, I'm talking years here. So when you say when you hear a handful of issues, don't think it's a lot. I'm talking I've had a good experience, so I'm not going to go through it, but pretty good. But right now, right now, technology news dominated by Apple with sales, with iOS 18, with Sequoia coming out, software update for their MacBooks, software update for their watches, software updates for their phones, iPhone 16, pre-sales, orders, shipments. Whoever ordered an iPhone 16 should get them here later this week. So if you were one of the people that did order a new iPhone 16 model, I bet it can't get here fast enough. So we are one of them, and I'm really not sure what to expect. So I might run a poll in my community tab, because wanting to know what should I test, right? Like, what do y'all want me to test with these iPhones, or with this iPhone, with these Android devices? What I can think of right off the bat, obviously camera quality. We'll do picture comparisons. We'll do video comparisons. We will do battery tests, charging tests. Now, when the OnePlus, I was going to say benchmarking test, but we already know what the results are going to be of that. When the 8 Gen 4 comes out in this OnePlus 13, that's when I'll jump heavy into benchmark testing. But yeah, we'll probably just do all sorts of stuff with it. Anything I can think of, right? Raw camera output. Interesting. What are you going to upgrade it for? You're going to trade in your iPhone 14 Plus? What are you getting? You getting a Pro or Pro Max, or are you getting another Plus model? You tired of big phones? Yeah. Oh, here you go. I'm going to order the 16 Pro Friday Desert Titanium. Yeah, that's the thing. I was so stuck on a Pro for testing, and then I was like, you know what? I need to get a Pro Max, and then I don't know. If I'm gonna be carrying it around, I don't want a third big phone. I already carry 2 phones at all times. I don't want a third. That's too much, man. The Pro is pretty good size. Plus, all these case companies sent Pro cases to me anyways, so you're just gonna get a Pro. I think it's good size to hold in your hand when you're taking pictures, especially with that little camera thing up top. I think it's good size for taking pictures, because here's the deal: when you're using the Pixel's a fairly heavy phone. I'm not gonna lie, it feels nice and hefty, but can have trouble with it when you're trying to hold it, record it, do a selfie, or record with one hand. It's not an easy phone to handle. You got to get it just right. With the smaller phones, make it a lot easier to hold and take pictures with one hand. So all my phones are at least 6.7 or bigger, so and it'll be nice for a change. And obviously we'll test RCS and stuff like that, but Raw camera output in auto mode. Got you. Okay. That's a really, really, really good idea. Raw camera output and see what it looks like. Yeah, I agree. In fact, you don't see too many of those on YouTube. I may do that on an individual sensor basis and then do a comparison basis. Give me a good idea. I may go outside right now and I gotta go run an errand. I actually have a couple things I need to ship out, so I'm gonna go ship out some of this stuff and go take some raw image photos and add them to my collection. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. I didn't live stream this weekend because I had a lot of shit going on, but we'll see y'all back tomorrow. And I have your Rinky case, Daniel. And did I buy that Amazon gift card? Let me get out of here. I got some business to attend to. I'm gonna send Brian that Amazon gift card. I thought I bought it. Let me see if I sent it. Anyways, Daniel, I'm gonna ship you your Rinky. I got it right down here. I'm gonna go to the UPS store right now. So let me get out of here, guys. I'll see you all tomorrow. Peace.